Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Wherever you are in the world, welcome to another edition of Jerry's Take on China, and I'm Jerry. As we hit the 25th anniversary of the handover of Hong Kong to China, there's quite a lot of the usual rhetoric appearing in Western media, and most of it from the same old colonial masters who wish the islands and territories still belong to them. Unfortunately for them it doesn't, and from time to time these people need a little reminder, so here goes. Western media reports that Hong Kong is distorting history by refusing to acknowledge Britain's colonial past. That's an interesting and clickbait headline, which draws readers away from a much more complicated story that the media either ignores or chooses not to report. This is not a new or even a recent issue. In 1972, China requested the United Nations removes Hong Kong and Macau from a list of colonies as they did not recognize the legitimacy of the unfair treaties. The UN voted to do so by a vote of 99-5. That was 50 years ago, the same year Hong Kong and UK re-established diplomatic relations. Hong Kong watchers Benedict Rogers and the last governor, Chris Patten, are now amplifying media reports as we approach the anniversary in an attempt to raise some sort of negative media coverage again. It's the meaning of colony that seems to be causing consternation. In 2017, the BBC reported this. In 1898, to enforce its control of the area, the UK leased additional land known as the New Territories, promising to return them to China in 99 years. The Oxford English Dictionary defines a colony as a country or area under the full or partial political control of another country and occupied by settlers from that country. So now we can understand Britain's confusion. In one widely accepted definition, Hong Kong was taken as a prize after a war and then a treaty with a promise to return. In another, written by academics, it's a place under total or partial control of a foreign government, which Hong Kong definitely was from 1841 until 1997. A recent news article written by Ben McIntyre concedes that the treaties were unfair, but that Britain exercised sovereignty, not just governance over Hong Kong. It also states that China would attempt to deny Britain's part in Hong Kong's story. Well, that's grossly unfair. China has very much included Britain's part in the story, but it's included it in a way that's different to how Britain would like to be seen and remembered. Hong Kong was not the first, nor will it be the last colony that Britain loses. In fact, all around the world, from Aden to Zimbabwe, from Australia to the Windward Islands, many colonies have stepped away from British colonialism. The most recent was Barbados last year. Aden and America went to war. India presented Britain with a peaceful but forceful struggle. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and many others did so by a popular vote. And what's important here is that all those colonies that have left the empire have one of two things in common. One is they either went to war for their freedom, or two, they made an agreement after a popular vote. Hong Kong did neither. And this makes Hong Kong different. If Hong Kong was a colony and was entitled to the same rights, the same conditions, and the same treatment as other colonies, then why were citizens denied the right of a vote on their future? There really is only one answer, and that's because the British always knew that after 99 years, the land, the territory, and the people of Hong Kong would be returned to China. For 156 years of their existence, except 4 years of a Japanese occupation, the people of Hong Kong were subject to British rules, laws, and administration. At no time did they ever go to the polls to vote for their governor. The last governor, Chris Patten, introduced voting for the first time in 1991, 6 years before the handover. Until then, the people of the region had never elected any administrator, they'd never elected judges, they were appointed by the UK, and council members were appointed by the governor. So there was no representation at all. Some people now accuse China of dismantling Hong Kong's hard-won freedoms. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. In 1956, the Double 10 riots saw the loss of 60 lives. The riots were squashed by the intervention of the British Army. 10 years later, The Star Ferry riots saw 1 death, 13 civilians and 10 police officers injured. And once again, that happened after the intervention of the British military. The riots of 1967 saw 51 people killed and 832 injured. In 1981, disenchanted youth met with police violence, and that carried on right the way through the 80s. Certainly, the people of Hong Kong have fought long and hard for freedoms which were significantly denied to them by the British government, the British police, and a brutal British military. Democracy was never a part of Hong Kong's past, so whether that past is defined as colonial or occupied seems to be a moot point. Britain can assert that they were the colonial masters, but the international community of 1972 would beg to differ. And like the children of Britain and every other sovereign nation, Hong Kong's children are educated in the history of their region that most reflects their nation's truth. And this is why the role of Britain in Hong Kong's history should not be denied, nor should it be glossed over as a benevolent period where local people lived happily under the benign administration of a wonderful king or queen. Chinese people were given the opportunity to live under a British system which allowed no freedom of speech, no democratic rights, and for the vast majority of them, very few opportunities to better themselves. And any complaints that they made were met with violent police crackdowns supported by brutal and lethal military police. That's the real history that the British books won't tell us about. So if you have any questions about that, or you'd like to make any comments, please feel free to leave them and I will get back to you. And once again, thanks very much for your time and listening to Jerry's Take on China. See you next time. Bye-bye.